Back in my teenage years, around the age of 16, my family and I embarked on an unforgettable camping expedition in the picturesque Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. It was a quintessential fall retreat filled with the warmth of campfire meals, leisurely shopping at quaint town stores, and the excitement of cracking open geodes at those charming gem mines, revealing the sparkling wonders within, like quartz and amethyst. One particular night, after the collective joy of the day had simmered down, I found myself in our cozy camper, wide awake, engrossed in video games and texting my significant other. The clock struck around 1 in the morning when a peculiar rustling outside disturbed the otherwise serene sounds of nature. Initially dismissing it as the common sounds of the wilderness, my curiosity was piqued when the noise transformed into rhythmic banging around the fire pit. Concerned that a curious raccoon might be the source of the commotion, I decided to venture outside to retrieve my shoes just in case. As I cautiously cracked open the camper door, my eyes locked onto a creature that, at first glance, resembled a deer. Its snout was pressed against the grill grate in an odd display even for the wilderness. Figuring it might be a sickly animal, I decided to leave it alone. However, as I moved to grab my shoes, the deer abruptly turned its gaze toward me, emitting huffing sounds that felt almost calculated to intimidate. My curiosity shifted swiftly to fear when the creature stood up on its hind legs, its knees bending backward in an unnatural manner. Panic surged through me, and I hastily retreated, slamming the door shut and securing the lock. The following morning, my online search yielded no results matching the peculiar sighting. The only hits were for cases of a supposed zombie deer virus, none of which detailed the strange behavior I had witnessed. Months later, while reflecting on the bizarre encounter, I stumbled upon a local legend describing a creature fitting the description, a mysterious entity known as the shadow stag. As a practitioner of pagan beliefs, I couldn't shake the nagging thought that focusing on certain entities in one's thoughts could somehow draw them into one's life. 8 months later, back home on winter break, I found myself sharing the story with friends, unknowingly setting off a chain of unsettling events. On the drive home that night, a deer with those unnerving backward-bending knees crossed my path. Fear seized me, and I sped home, haunted by nightmares that persisted for weeks. The climax arrived when our beloved cat disappeared without a trace. Blaming the shadow stag, I ventured into the woods, calling out for our feline companion. The woods responded with rustling, and to my horror, a creature with sharp teeth stood before me. Panicking, I sprinted home, a palpable sense of guilt settling in. It felt like my thoughts had somehow summoned this creature, leading to the disappearance of our beloved pet. As time passed, I tried to bury the experiences, but sporadic nightmares served as an unwelcome reminder of the enigmatic and unsettling shadow stag that had crossed my path. In the summer of 2011, my buddies Jake, Alex, and I set out on an adventurous camping trip to my property nestled at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in Pennsylvania. The sun was high in the sky as we commenced our journey around noon, expecting nothing more than a leisurely hike through the woods. Little did we know, our day would transform into an eerie odyssey filled with inexplicable events. Accompanying us on this expedition was my trusty sidekick, Rex, a seasoned hunting beagle with a nose for adventure. An hour into our hike, Rex's behavior took a curious turn. He defied my commands and charged after a mysterious scent. Ignoring our calls, he led us off the beaten path and into unfamiliar terrain. In a clearing, Rex stood frozen, fixated on a gruesome sight, a doe split in half by an unseen force. The horror and disbelief that swept over us were unprecedented, especially considering our extensive history as hunting buddies. We attributed the macabre scene to a possible black bear encounter but couldn't shake off an uneasy feeling. Rex, typically a fearless companion, seemed unnerved and cautious, his usual howls replaced by an eerie silence. As we redirected ourselves to the regular hiking route, we heard what could only be described as bipedal footsteps trailing behind us, maintaining an unsettling distance. Armed with my reliable Colt Python .357 Magnum, I decided to stay vigilant. The footsteps eventually faded as we resumed our familiar path, but the tension in the air remained palpable. What was supposed to be a 2-hour hike stretched into an unnerving 4, culminating at our chosen camping spot. We set up our tents, and, with the warmth of a crackling fire, we cooked a hearty meal and swapped stories. As the darkness enveloped the landscape, we retreated to our respective tents, blissfully unaware of the strange events that awaited us in the stillness of the night. Around 2 a.m., a disturbance stirred me from my sleep. Heavy footsteps resonated outside my tent. Rex, usually a source of comfort, stood motionless, radiating an aura of caution. A peculiar stench wafted through the air, and an eerie silence blanketed the forest. Minutes later, hushed whispers emanated from Alex and Jake's tent, dispelling any notion of a prank. As I unzipped my tent, their urgent words confirmed that something ominous loomed. I was confronted by a surreal sight, a towering, gray creature with antlers, hollow eye sockets, and a twisted smile peering at us from behind a tree. Its eyes emitted an otherworldly reddish glow. Reacting on instinct, I reached for my Taurus Model 66.357 Magnum revolver and fired 3 rounds, unleashing an ear-piercing scream that reverberated through the woods. The creature fled, leaving us shaken. Rex whimpered, cowering in a corner of the tent, as we processed the surreal encounter. Packing up swiftly, we descended the mountain with an urgency fueled by fear. Unsettlingly, the creature trailed us, prompting me to fire blindly into the darkness with my Smith & Wesson Model 29 revolver. Its agonizing screech echoed, etching into our memories. The journey that took hours on the ascent now took a mere hour and a half on the descent. Reaching my house brought a sense of relief, but the encounter left an indelible mark on us. Rex, once a fearless companion, refused to enter the woods, forever altered by that fateful night. Reflecting on the experience, we questioned how such a vile creature remained unknown in the Appalachian wilderness. The mystery persists, an unsettling chapter in our shared history, recounted only among us, a chilling tale of the inexplicable in the heart of the mountains. A few years back, my girlfriend and I, seasoned hikers of various segments of the Appalachian Trail, decided to embark on a challenging adventure through the wild expanse of the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. Excited for the solitude offered by one of the trail's more remote and less traveled sections, we gathered our gear and set out on what we anticipated would be an awe-inspiring journey. It was early October, and the deciduous foliage painted the landscape with vibrant hues, creating a breathtaking tapestry of colors. The air was crisp and cool, making it the perfect hiking weather. Most of our trek unfolded like any typical hike, serene and uneventful, surrounded by the beauty of nature. However, the tranquility was soon shattered during our last couple of nights. According to trail guidelines, camping was designated for the trail or specific shelters. Unwilling to encounter other hikers and seeking the solitude of the wilderness, we decided to carve our own space off the trail. After some exploration, we discovered a secluded spot in a small clearing, slightly away from the beaten path. The evening unfolded as expected, setting up camp, cooking dinner, and immersing ourselves in the serenity of the surroundings. But as the clock neared 2 a.m., an abrupt disturbance shattered the peaceful night. My girlfriend shook me awake, panic evident in her voice, insisting that someone was outside our tent, circling it with a sharp object. Instinctively, I reached for my hiking companions, a 1911 and a judge. One can never be too cautious when traversing long, isolated trails. In the eerie silence that followed, I strained my senses to detect any movement. After a few tense moments, the stillness was broken by the distinct sound of footsteps, unmistakably bipedal, echoing through the woods behind our tent. Armed and vigilant, I cautiously stepped out, mindful of not giving away our location with a premature flashlight beam. The moon's dim glow barely illuminated the surroundings as I surveyed the area. I thought I glimpsed someone behind a tree and sternly warned them to leave, emphasizing my armed status. A sudden dash through the woods, first from my right and then from the original spot, confirmed the unsettling presence of unknown individuals. Though reluctant to pursue, I returned to the campsite, keeping the unnerving encounter to myself, not wanting to alarm my already anxious girlfriend. Morning brought an unsettling discovery, a boot print in the damp soil, different from ours. The confirmation that someone had lurked around our tent heightened our apprehension, but we pressed on, now more vigilant than ever. Days later, with an inexplicable feeling of being trailed, we accelerated our pace. Choosing a campsite near a cliff for added security, we prepared for another restless night. Despite my lingering sense of unease, exhaustion overcame me, and I reluctantly succumbed to sleep, promising myself a vigilant watch. Suddenly, I awoke to the disconcerting sounds of someone rummaging through our belongings just outside the tent. Reacting swiftly, I woke my girlfriend, and in the faint glow of the dying fire, I spotted a shadow against a tree. Without hesitation, I warned them of our armed status, prompting a hasty retreat. As I ventured towards the edge of the woods, I glimpsed a lantern's flicker and the silhouettes of multiple individuals. Fear now gripped us as we hastily abandoned our camp, leaving behind valuables. The night echoed with mysterious whispers and branches snapping, heightening our anxiety. The long, nerve-wracking trek continued into the early hours until an unsettling encounter occurred. As dawn approached, a figure emerged onto the trail, silently observing us. I demanded an explanation, but met only silence as they retreated into the woods. With an accelerated pace, we reached the trail's end, exhausted but grateful to escape the ominous presence that had haunted our journey. The enigma of those unsettling nights in the Appalachian wilderness lingers, an unresolved mystery of unknown individuals and their intentions, leaving us with a chilling tale from the heart of nature's isolation. It was a summer night in Valley of Virginia, surrounded by the majestic Appalachian Mountains. I had just left a party, dropping my sister off at her car before embarking on the tranquil drive home. The New River, with its soothing flow, accompanied my journey along the river road. The night was clear, adorned with countless stars, and the absence of the moon added an extra layer of mystery to the landscape. As I crossed the Eggleston Bridge and traversed the railroad tracks to reach the gravel road, everything seemed ordinary. The lights from trailers on the other side of the river cast a warm glow on the water, creating a serene ambience. I tuned into 94.9 on the radio, letting the music fill the night air as I casually extended my hand out of the window. However, as I continued halfway down the river, a subtle unease began to creep over me. I scanned my surroundings, finding nothing out of the ordinary. Chalking it up to nerves from a few beers I'd had earlier, I pulled my hand in and rolled up the window. That's when an eerie fog, unusually thick, enveloped the road ahead, obscuring my vision. Navigating through the dense fog at a slower pace, a strange sensation settled in the pit of my stomach. As I pushed through the first section of the fog, a sizable mass in the middle of the road caught my attention. Slamming the brakes, I flicked on my high beams to reveal a large black dog, standing as tall as a fully grown German shepherd. Its fur, as dark as the night sky, seemed innocent at first. Yet, the unease persisted as the dog refused to acknowledge my presence. Frustrated, I honked my horn, prompting the creature to retreat into the brush along the water. My initial thought was that it was a lost or free-roaming dog, not an uncommon sight in these mountainous terrains. As I drove past where the dog had vanished, an unsettling feeling lingered, as if it were watching me. Reaching the end of the road, I encountered a small tunnel, a customary spot where drivers honked their horns to signal their approach. Given the thick fog, I decided to flick my lights on and honk just to be cautious. As I pulled up to the tunnel, my high beams revealed the same black dog standing in front of my car once again. Panic set in as I slammed on the brakes, tires skidding slightly on the gravel. Turning off the music, I stared at the dog, a tense atmosphere hanging in the air. I reached for the horn again, and this time, the creature turned to face me. It was then that I saw its face for the first time. Bright red eyes pierced through the darkness, and its top canine protruded menacingly. Frozen with dread, I felt an overwhelming sense that I should not move. Time seemed to stand still until a call from my sister broke the trance. Answering the phone, I struggled to convey what was happening when her girlfriend abruptly demanded she hang up. The dog, seemingly annoyed, lingered, its red eyes fixed on me. As my sister hung up, I shifted into reverse, ready to speed away. To my relief, the creature didn't approach but stood between me and the tunnel, tilting its head curiously. It felt like an eternity, though only 20 minutes had passed. When the dog vanished into the thicket, I sped away, disregarding potholes and the lingering fog. Upon reaching home, I took a moment to collect myself. It was 2 a.m., and I refrained from waking my father. Researching the encounter, I stumbled upon the lore of hellhounds, creatures said to bring ominous warnings. The tale goes that encountering a hellhound 3 times may lead to one's demise. I had only seen it twice, leaving an unsettling uncertainty. 6 years have passed since that night, and I haven't encountered such a creature again. Sharing this tale provides some relief, and I hope to connect with others who may shed light on the enigmatic nature of that night. The unanswered questions persist, and the memory of the red-eyed dog in the Appalachian night remains etched in my mind. When I was around 11 years old, growing up in the vastness of the Appalachian Mountains in Pennsylvania, I had an experience that has left me baffled to this day. It happened during December, around daylight savings time. On that particular morning, school was supposed to be in session, but heavy snowfall overnight led to the cancellation of classes due to impassable roads. For a child, this unexpected gift of a snow day was a cause for excitement, and I couldn't wait to spend the entire day playing and exploring the winter wonderland that had unfolded around our home. Our property stretched over an acre, reaching far into the woods that bordered it. I decided to venture deep into the forest, drawn by the allure of a small frozen pond beyond our property line. The snow, crisp and untouched, crunched beneath my snow boots as I made my way through the serene woods. Everything seemed normal until an abrupt stillness enveloped the surroundings. The woods, once alive with the sounds of birds and the rustling of wildlife, fell into an eerie silence. It was as if nature itself held its breath, and an unsettling feeling crept over me. At that point, I should have turned back, sensing that something was amiss, but the curiosity of a naive child pushed me forward. As I reached the frozen pond, the silence persisted, and an unexplainable tension hung in the air. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, and a sense of foreboding settled in. Despite my unease, I pressed on. But as I stood by the frozen water, a feeling of impending danger washed over me. It was an instinctive fear that I couldn't rationalize. Suddenly, and without warning, I felt an urgent need to leave. It was as if some unspoken threat urged me to run back home. Trusting this inexplicable intuition, I sprinted back through the woods, retracing my steps as fast as my little legs could carry me. As I burst into my backyard, I was met with the sight of a setting sun, casting long shadows across the snow-covered landscape. Confused and breathless, I encountered my worried mother, who had been searching for me. To my bewilderment, she informed me that I had been gone for hours. It was nearly 8 p.m., and I had left the house around 10 a.m. The revelation struck me like a thunderbolt. I could not comprehend how what felt like a mere 20 minutes had turned into an entire day. This inexplicable missing time has haunted me ever since. I didn't encounter any strange creatures or experience any supernatural phenomena during that day, but the bizarre distortion of time remains an enigma. It's a memory that continues to defy explanation, and despite the years that have passed, the details surrounding that peculiar day in the woods of Pennsylvania still leave me scratching my head in bewilderment.